First of all, I want to thank you for doing this, Dr. Smith. I've known you since I was 18. 18 years old.
Well.
18. And I wanted just to start here because it was important for me to have this conversation because, one, so much you've done and so much you've been to so many people. But I wanted to see, did you think, and I hope it's okay for us to say, did you think that you would live this long, to see all this stuff, and I know the viewers, you just turned 25. So you might tell the people how old you are and just, did you think you would see that?
No, I was born on October 7, 1931. And honestly, I always thought that I would live a long time.
Really?
Yeah. My father passed at age 45. Colon cancer, and then my mother passed at, I think it was 73, 74, 75, somewhere in there, and then my grandmother passed at 93, I think. So I felt that. So but I don't know why I refuse to allow that to hinder me in any way.
But it's good. I'm asking it because there are people who don't prepare to live that long. We live and don't prepare to see where do we want to end. But you said that you thought you would. So did you pattern your life because you thought that you were going to live that long? Did you do things intentionally?
No, I didn't do that. Only thing I did was I tried to adapt to the fact that when I'm called above, hopefully, I'll be ready to go. But in the meantime, I'm not going to rush it. But while I am here, I want to make sure that I do the right thing. I'm most comfortable with the idea of a family atmosphere. I prefer to think about what's going to happen with my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, along with my own children. And I wish for them a little bit easier life than what I had, but an understanding and enjoyable life that I have witnessed. So I think my longevity, I guess you can call it that now.
It is. Yeah. Is it hard for you to think of yourself like that in longevity and looking?
I don't feel. The only time I feel different is when I walk too much, and I might get a little tired. Other than that, nothing else slows me up.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know it, Dr. Smith still works out. You used to walk. You do all this stuff. I guess you still do all of that. One of the most fit that I know.
Yeah, I work out 3 times a week at the rehab center.
Yeah.
And it's under close restrictions and a watchful eye, and I feel very comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And usually when I have finished, I realize I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel relaxed because it's over.
Yeah.
So I usually get a good night's sleep. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most of the time, everything is fine. I try not to go to bed with any problems. If I have one, I try to resolve it then. But if I don't, it'll be on my mind all night.
Yeah.
So I'll try to adjust to it the next day.
I want to know what changes. You've seen a lot. I'm 41, but you've seen much more than that.
Yeah.
What major things stick out to you just thinking about the changes that you've seen and where we are now? You've seen, just even now, COVID. That's new to us, but you've seen other things.
Well, I think the closest thing I came to COVID was probably the flu. Maybe whooping cough, but I don't remember ever having that, but I think my mother said I might have had. But the thing that stands out to me as far as significance of remembrance would probably be my first visit to Frankfurt. And I wasn't sure about what I was going to do. I wasn't sure about where I was going to go. I had another halfway opportunity to go to another school, but I knew I wanted to be on the collegiate level. And I felt that wherever it might be, that I would get the opportunity to grow as a musician. I knew that I had so much to do. You see, my young ideal was to become an eye doctor.
Really?
Yes. I wanted to go into the medical field, but I realized, no way. I didn't have enough money for that. We didn't have the kind of scholarships you guys have now. And then there was also a little different way of getting in and because of racial situations back in those days. But in 1958 was when I first came to Frankfurt. And I noticed that I came off of that hill coming from Louisville, came right down the hill there by the overlook, of the Capitol and all of that. And I looked down and I paused. They didn't have all of that construction built in there at that time. And I looked down over it and it looked so quiet. I said, this is really a quiet place. I'll bet you this is a little bitty place. But I remember being in Frankfurt, but I didn't really see it.
Yeah.
Because it was usually at night we were there on choir trip. Mm-hmm. And then, you get there sometimes, you get there in the evening, you don't see anything, then you go to bed, and you get up the next morning, you got to eat breakfast and get on the road to the next concert. So, excuse me, I didn't get that opportunity to do it. But I remember coming up, being introduced, and at the time I came, the president of the university, Dr. and Mrs. Atwood, were away on a trip. They were in Europe somewhere, holiday, taking a vacation of some kind. I hadn't had the opportunity, not only not to have met the president, but I hadn't had the opportunity to even speak to him. Because during my college days, I was a student director of the choir for 2 years. Then I was student director of the concert band for 2 years. So I'd had quite a bit of experience. So, but I had an offer at Southern University. It was not necessarily a choir job. However, it may become that later on. And I was fearful of that. I wanted to go to the university level. I wanted to be a choir director. So this job came up, and I decided I will take it. And that's how I got here.
Yeah.
Now, when I first came here, Bradford Hall there was not there. I had a picture of it somewhere. I don't know where it is now, but when my daughter was born, she was just a little tight, my oldest one, and she would. I got a picture of her. She's coming up that hill, up that walkway. What we had as a music building was a house.
Wow. Wow.
And it wasn't a big house either. Yeah. It was a house that also housed the chairmanship's office, and my office was down there, and other teachers were there. Miss Dixon, I think, was piano teacher at the time, and her office was down there.
Now, before we get there, because those people who you're watching or listening, and you wonder what school we're talking about, we are talking about the Kentucky State University here in Frankfort, Kentucky, historically black college. But I wanted to talk about, before we get there, just growing up, was music always at the forefront of your life? Because you grew up not in Kentucky, in where you were raised, which is Oklahoma, right?
Well, yeah, but I was raised up to the 9th grade in Terrell, Texas. Mm-hmm. And we lived in town sometime, and sometime we lived on the farm. Because my great-grandfather started out as a sharecropper. And of course they did, food, vegetables, and grew those things, and had orchards, trees, and so forth. And they also had cotton. And I also worked in those fields every now and then as I grew up a little bit.
Yeah. So you remember all of that?
Oh yeah. Oh God, that's the worst job of all. Working in the fields, I thought it was a terrible place. My brother and I used to sneak off. We're taking a break when we were working, and we sit down and get up on the shade tree and we talk about, oh, I'll be so glad when I get out of this place. Yes, ma'am, I will too. So when I was in 9th grade, my grandmother came down to visit from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's when I asked her if she would like to have some protection.
Some protection.
Because she lived by herself. and I'd like to be there to kind of look after her and so forth. So I said, I'd like to come then. And so she laughed and she said, well, it would be nice to have you, but I doubt that your mother would ever let you come. I said, yes, she would let me come, because she knows I want to go to a good school and I want to do this and I want to do that. I was talkative. So I convinced Mom that I would be a good boy, I would study hard, and I wouldn't give my grandmother any problems whatsoever. And she gave me permission, and that's how I ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow.
The 9th grade.
Wow. Is that where you were introduced to music?
God, yes. It was a different ball game. When I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I had an experience. I always knew I could sing. People used to, young kid, I was a child, I used to sing, had high-pitched voice, all of them, they loved me so much. They'd give me a quarter, they'd give me $1, sometimes. I mean, if I got $1, it was like, wow, well, I was just a little kid, I didn't know any better. But I knew that I wanted to be a musician then, and I'd have a better chance of being a musician than being a doctor of any kind. Because of the money situation, we were not a rich family at all. So I went to Tulsa, and when I went there, they had a boys' choir. I'd never been in a boys' choir before. I hadn't been in really a choir other than church choir. It's about all I really knew. And up to the 9th grade, we had a little bit of a choir, but it really wasn't like structured as a music teacher would be in charge. So I was happy to be in Tulsa. And on the first day of my class, I had the most harrowing experience. I just felt like I'm in another world here. What's going on? But anyway, she had all the boys, there were about 15 of us, 16 of us, I'm not sure, line up and sing something. And then she played, we had to sing some stuff. At the time that I did that, my voice was going through change. And when you sing, you can start singing, little boy's voice. And I went, and I was going. And the more I did that, the more I looked at the kids, and they'd be looking at each other, eyes going this way. Get here. And they would kind of giggling a bit. Extremely embarrassing. I'd never been so hurt in all my life. When that classroom was over, I ran out of that classroom. I was, just a boy, just a kid. I ran out of there. I was so hurt. They didn't really know me or anything. And it's almost like they laughed at me. So that was my first experience there. But about, a few weeks later, I can't explain it all to you, other than the fact that evidently my voice had gone through that change, primarily at that spot. And so there was a spot in there that was singing, and they were singing incorrectly. And so she got disgusted with us, and I heard it right away. And so then she would ask us, Joe, come up here. Let me hear you sing this. And Joe would sing it almost right. And they said, hey, Jeremy, you come over here and let me hear you sing yours. And he sang pretty well. And they said, and then one boy said, "No, that's good. That's the way I want it sung. Don't you understand, boys? I want it sung like that. See how he did that? Is there anybody else in here who can do this?" Nobody raised their hand. So I finally raised my hand. And she said, "Carl, you wanna do?" "Yes, I do. I'm ready to sing." So she hit the keyboard, started playing. I started singing. Racked it back. That was it.
Yes.
That was the beginning of my music career.
Wow.
Then I got little solos, and we'd get on assembly program, and I'd sing, and I'm at that stage of I'm looking at the girls, they're looking pretty and everything, I'm thinking, wow, this is a place, I am in heaven. I'm right next to it if I'm not there.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we get to, I wonder, because you're known, and for those of us who were your recruits or those that you recruited, were known for being able to bring out the best sound that any choir could have. You took people who had heavy, what you call warbles, and people who didn't have any type of, had not sang together, blending them and all that stuff. Yeah. And I wonder, because later on you served for the United States, and you got affected with your hearing.
Yeah.
But how did that affect you, even with music?
Well, when I was in the military, we had to fire the 40 recordless weapon. But we call it the bazooka. Really, knock out the tanks. Had a tremendous backsplash to it. Boom! And they evidently, somebody must have put cotton in your ear or whatever, but I didn't hear it. But not only did I not hear it, several of the other boys didn't hear it either. So when you got up there and I shot with my left hand, I'm right hand, I shot with left hand because I can't close this eye over here and shoot. So I can close this one, so I do it like that. But at any rate, after I shot it, man, there was a big boom. And then my ear started. I thought it was something that would just go away. So I stayed with it. So I was talking to a buddy of mine. I said, man, my ear is kind of messed up. What's the left ear over here? He said, mine is too, man. Wonder what it is. And found out several of us had that problem as it got lower. So you go to the hospital, VA. I was stationed in Hawaii, and you go to the medical services, and the only thing they told you was that it'll get better. It'll get better as you grow older. And I said, mine never got better. So that's why I had that ringing in my ear. Then the next experience, when I started teaching here, I had big sounds. Oh God, as kids could sing. Betty Smith and Andrew Smith and all of them. Whoa! They had that voice to be going just as powerful as they could go. Beautiful voices. So we sang down at the Episcopal Church here in Frankfurt. And so when we finished, the people were applauding and everything. He was coming, he came down to me and shook my hand. He said, I'd like to talk to you. He said, you really got a good choir here. You got a good choir. You do a good job. You're very musical. He said, but there is just one problem that I have with your singing, with your choir. And I said, what is that? He said, they're too loud. And I never really thought about that so much. There were so many other things I didn't think about until I really started studying. And I hadn't been in Kentucky State maybe 6 weeks, months or something like that. But it bothered me. Here's somebody comes up and telling me what was wrong or bad about what I'm doing. It was a little bit on the embarrassing side. So I decided, this can't be. I've got to find out how to become a choir director and what constitutes it. And I went to the workshop, and there was one conductor doing a workshop in Louisville, and he was working and he kept talking about balance, sound, all of this. I already knew about diction and things like that, but the balancing of voices. You know, how do you get people to do this? Well, the first thing you have to do is you got to get people to listen. You got to get them to know exactly what you're talking about. So you had to put up two models. Do you want to sing like this? Do you want to sing like this? You know, both songs, they got the same rhythm, same words. What do you like? How do you achieve this? This or that? What do you want? Well, obviously, you know, William starts the Waring singers were not that polished at the time, but they were popular as a choral group. But there were so many other groups that were just musical. God, they could sing. And I just decided that I was going to do that. I want to model my choir after that. I don't need to have solos in every section. You don't need to hear voices individually. Yeah. And I started working on it.
Yeah. So do you think that the big sound that you had was for you to compensate for what you couldn't hear, so it was a big sound, or what do you think in the beginning before that person said that, or had you just not paid any attention to it?
Well, when you're young, you don't pay attention to everything you ought to pay attention to. That's why people choose certain directors to work with or want to work with, because there's certain things they know about. Well, as a person coming from where I come from, because my life was just fast, you know, working in the field, starting my life out, and then ending up finally getting into a good high school system, educational system at Booker T. Washington there in Tulsa, and then later going and visiting choirs and listening to them sing. You know, I heard the Fish Jubilee singers when they used to sing in the garb, original garb, as a tuxedo and long dresses and gowns, stuff like that. And they were up on stage singing, and they did so many things that were nice, but there wasn't the real English required type of singing. It was African American spirituals. That's what it basically was. But those voices, they didn't sound the same as those big old loud voices you hear. They sounded kind of blended, different and powerful and extremely beautiful. And I just thought, oh my goodness, these guys are really something else. And between each note, people would be applauding. And the director sat over here because I watched him. And he just sitting down. And the place was full. Then all of a sudden, they finished that one song. Oh! Then they all start together, all of them, singing right on it. I said, why do they do that? Well, sometimes they use the pitch back, sometimes they didn't use anything. Because it was related. They used a related pitch. You know, pa, and you got a minor third word, the next key, pa, it's in that key, you know, it was in that one, and you got to make all those adjustments. So I started thinking, I got to teach some music here. And I started doing it, even though I didn't take anything away from those spirituals. I thought they were so beautiful. I'd heard some of it, you know, you hear some of the old time singing, but to hear it the way Fish Jubilee singers used to sing, man, I left that concert, I was just so thrilled, I didn't know what to do. And the other thing that got me was Roland Hayes. I don't know if you ever heard of Roland Hayes. He was the first probably international tenor concert artist, black, that received this really impetus to really get out there and really sing. He didn't have a big voice. It's a little small voice, but he had such control. Just beautiful sounds. And there's one song that I attribute to him. It's called "Little Boy," and let's see, I haven't heard it for so long. I just thought of it. Little boy, how old are you? No, you're really not. Little boy, how old are you? And then the kid would answer, sir, I'm only 12 years old. I sang that song and I thought, thank God, I got so much to learn. I have so much to do. And it just tore me up, man. Leontine Price and all of those people were singing. Black singers were beginning to grow. They're being respected, but they were superior.
So it's very important that you're saying that you were growing up in a time that you were exposed to such excellence.
Oh, yes.
That you saw it.
Yeah.
So it challenged you.
Yeah.
So do you think that's what really made you, help you to mold the sound and the presentation?
I still hear in the black choirs, I felt that a lot of the choirs in black universities, they had a different style and they had a different intent. And the basic intent was to talk about and sing about the spirituals. They were singing mostly about their ancestors. So I respect that and I understand that. But when I started studying, I found out that all of that music, those spirituals and all of that, were really our music. And it told the story of who we are, who we were. And it talked about everything, but it was always fixed on God. And I really got into the thinking about it. And none of this means anything. You know, music is more than entertainment. It's also theological. It is also the church. It is also the people, the endurance of the people, and what they endured. American blacks, no other people in this country endured it. And I became more attracted to it. You know, I heard stuff we singing in the rural churches when I was a kid growing up. You know those songs. You've heard all of those. Heard those songs. These people were workers. They were not musicians, but they had the rhythm. They had all this stuff. There's so much good about it. But that was what really engrossed me. But the main thing here was I almost called the conductor's name, funny name, but we're doing a workshop, and he started relating almost every line to some historical event or some historical happening, or associated with different peoples and groups of people in Europe, Germany, wherever you want to be, and in America. But he never said a lot about America. They never talked a lot about American music as in African American. What they talked about was European music. European music. Now, doing my dissertation work, I started looking at all of that and see how it related. That music from Europe was chants. And most of it is chants. Most of it is based off of a chant. Most of it moves in the way that a chant moves. And then you say, well, why was it just a chant? Why wasn't it? And it was more than that later on, but the basic stuff and where you go in different churches to still retain this kind, it's the chant. And in that chant, the music, it was just one line. And there was always a leader who taught that line in music. He would sing it. The priest would be the one to sing it, and still do it in some instances as a traditional thing. But they did it then, and the folk responded. Why did they do that? I started wondering about it. Why? This is so dull music. Because the congregation couldn't read. And farmers. I'm talking about going back in the history. I wasn't even born when all that started. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, you start showing how it is. Now then, so that music is really a development based upon tradition. Now what other music is like that? The African American spiritual. You know? I heard the voice of Jesus say, come unto me and rest. And back home, Papa would sing, I heard, and so forth and so on. And all of that stuff just started getting them, and I started thinking about it. What does all of this mean? And then, there was such a separation of races, segregated as can be. Really segregate. You go to a nightclub or something, you saw musician, you saw white folks going with black folk, and a lot of times you didn't any black folk in that at all. But later on, as I hit high school, and I started making a lot of observances, and this is when you'd see black musicians play, and you start recognizing a lot of those white guys would be hanging around when they were playing. They were copying their jazz. Cause see, music had more to do with integration than people think.
Yes. Yeah.
When musicians are up there playing, they're not thinking about, oh, that's a black guy playing. Oh, that's a white girl trying to sing like she's black. Blah, blah, blah. We don't think about all this. It's like, yeah, man, let's do it. Get with it. And what is he doing? How did he do that?
So as you saw music continue to evolve and social inequities, inequalities, and all these different things, and where did you, because I distinctly remember, and it has shaped a lot of what I do now, we rehearsed more about how we entered the stage than sometimes a song. Like you would make us do it over and over again. Like, no, guys, I need you to stand a certain way. Women, I need you to stand a certain way. You would talk about, if you don't sound good, you at least need to look good. Is that something that you felt as you saw all these areas of excellence and saw black life evolve? Is that something that you said, I'm holding on to that elegance, that distinguished quality of holding yourself up in respect?
I kind of remember one incident, one choir, that made me conscious of some things. And I think that was the all Girl Scout choir down in black school in Alabama, in Atlanta. Can't call the name of it now. Come to me. Anyway, those girls sang in Lexington one time, and before the minister passed, he used to come over and preachers had different preachers to come to Kentucky State and preach on Sunday. All throughout, black preachers. Every now and then you had a white, but most of the time black. That choir came in. Spelman College. That's it. What? All of those pretty black women came in. They weren't showing out. They weren't trying to be pretty, and maybe they weren't pretty. I think a better word is elegance. They were elegant. They walked so graciously, and they walked. Everything was just done in motion. They'd go up, and they take their steps and move in and take steps, and they stand so graciously, and then they start singing. I never forget that first time I saw that in Lexington. I'm telling you, who was with me? That's where none was. And anyway, the guy said, man, he said, that's the prettiest thing I ever seen in my life. I said, what is that? All of how those girls came up there in those pretty dresses and how they looked so nice and so straight, so formal. I thought about you. And I said, never will I put a raggedy choir on the stage again. I'll never put a raggedy choir on the stage again. No, sir. They're going to look uniform, and they're going to walk in with pride, and they're going to act like they're happy and cheerful. And I started getting that, man. People started asking for the choir to come, and that was part of it. I know it was. That was part of it. Because those little old ladies, they come. I see them sometimes when they come to the campus for homecoming or something like that, and they always go, Mr. Smith, he said, I want to compliment you. I was this one guy. He said, I want to compliment you. All of you young ladies look so nice and look so good. And I said, well, thank you so very much. When they were on the stage and they sang beautifully, they got this great. He said, now, I just wonder, would you like to come to Western Kentucky to sing. I don't know. I'm trying to think where it was. It was like all this stuff. Like I can't remember dates. I can't remember that. I can remember places and incidents. And I said, sure. So and he said, now you won't charge me? I said, well, yes. I said, I don't have any money to get there. He said, I'll pay for you to get there. I said, well, okay. I said, I gotta have somewhere to sleep. I gotta have something to eat, take care of all of it. I'll never forget that as long as I live.
So do you think that even though you said you didn't want to put a ragtag choir up, do you think that you were still instilling that sense of pride in the students?
Oh, sure.
You know, because I mean,
no question about it.
Yeah, because it wasn't just about coming on the stage. I remember time because when we traveled on tours and stuff, when we would stop and go, and before we went to a store, you would tell us how to come off the bus. Like women had to take off their hair wraps, all that type of stuff. It was a form of respect.
It was just the kind of thing whereby I said, you're not a country group. You're college students. And you got to carry yourself and learn to carry yourself. I made it reach the point whereby, man, those girls used to come dressed up to choir rehearsal. I won't say dressed up, but they would make certain that everything was in place, you know, before they'd come in. And the guys got better too. It wasn't just the girls. The guys got
it was us. I remember as well the challenge. I mean, we had to, you didn't come in there with your hair had to be cut, you know, all that type of stuff, you know, when we presented ourselves.
No, if you remember that choir, you didn't act up on what's that, on the grounds. What do y'all call it? On the yard.
On the yard.
You didn't act up on the yard either.
Yeah, no.
If you remember choir.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Some boy got in a fight or something one time, and he used quite a bit of profanity right there on campus. They came back to me at choir rehearsal, now before choir rehearsal. Yes, this is so-and-so, so-and-so. I said, okay, come on in. What can I help you with? We got to tell you about something, Mr. Smith. I said, what's wrong? What's going on? So-and-so, so-and-so got in a fight the other day, and he was using a lot of profanity. That doesn't represent the choir. That's what you told us. That kind of stuff just doesn't go. So I want you to know about it. I don't want it. We don't want to kick him out because we like him and everything, but we don't want him carrying on the way he carried on. And I thought about it, so I did a little checking myself, found out I had to talk to this guy. But it just so happened, this boy could sing up a storm. I thought, Lord, help me to say the right thing. I don't want to tear this boy off because he didn't know nothing about music or singing. I just caught him on the yard. I used to recruit like that. Hey, boy, come here. What voice do you sing? Oh, I don't sing, sir. I said, yes, you do. No, yes, you do. I can look at you and tell. You can't look at me and tell. I said, do what I say. And they had the kids be around. I remember this first, the kids around. I said, do what I said. And I said, oh. And he said, oh. I said, and they said, and they doing this, you know, first. And then I do something, oh, for instance, and he'll do, oh. He didn't know he was imitating me. But he didn't know that I was also listening to what kind of voice he really had. He was turning around, and that boy was sophomore, junior. He wasn't a music major. He was sophomore, junior. He was a soloist.
So how did you, I mean, because that goes into recruiting. You recruited, so, I mean, some of your students that you recruited now have sang in the Metropolitan Opera. Mm-hmm. They're on, you know, one's been in Clark Sisters movies. Yeah. They're all over. I mean, they're, some of them are voice teachers. They're voice coaches. They're dancers. All. Yeah. Do you think you had an eye for talent?
Well, I think a lot of talent came from the groups participating in the choir, because if you recall, when we used little movements sometimes in some of the dance steps and all of that, there was always somebody who taught that. And they taught it for the choir, you know, and we get up on the stage and do it. So you recall, did you ever go to Montreal with the choir? You didn't go to Montreal, did you? Oh man, you missed it so much. There was so
I
much
went to some places not there.
There was something that went on, man. I started reminiscing and thinking about how in the world a little country boy like me end up with a refreshingly beautiful art like music. and become so involved and get so many students involved. It's just amazing.
What is the trip that you were most humbled by to say that you got here? Like you're looking at yourself like, how did I get here?
Oh, let's see, it must have been the second Montreal trip. I think we went to Montreal 3 or 4 times. It was one every time we went out there. I think this was the second trip to Montreal. We flew out there, and I was just amazed at everything that had been accomplished, because they had everything in there. The dances that we did as singers, you had a section of classical stuff, you had a section of lighter stuff or whatever you wanted to be, then you had a section of group entertainment type thing, showtime, show tune for choir. Everything that was done, all of those steps were taught by you students. That's who taught. I didn't teach that.
Yeah.
You guys got it together.
But you encouraged leadership.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, when it got done, I always looked at it. You wouldn't put it on stage.
Oh, I know.
Without me approving
I know you always came to approve. But I'm just saying that you became more than one minute you were deciding what sound you were going to have.
Yeah.
One minute you were deciding that my students are not going to look a certain way. But then for the longevity, you started developing students and not developing students, leadership.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, I need you to be a student director. You start doing, because we had sectionals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you introduced, well, I know it was through a chapter as well, alumni, but some of us had never even gone to Broadway before.
Yeah.
Until, through the concert choir. We went every year and we would go to Chinatown or wherever and buy suits, and we would go. And that was we had never experienced that before.
I know it.
But that was through choir.
And you guys didn't have to pay a
No, we didn't pay anything. No, we got off the bus and got money, to spend.
You know what else? Kentucky State didn't pay for it either.
No. Yeah.
You had sponsors who played for it.
Yeah.
I went to Berea College one year to perform with the choir. We sang. They have an assembly program doing, I don't know if it's Black History Month or whenever it is, but they have guest groups come in. And when I finished my first performance over there, I think I had, I don't know, it seems to me like they gave me like $500. And when it was over, they had the campus minister there was a black guy, father somebody, can't think of his name now. But he was a wonderful guy. After it was over, he says, Mr. Smith, come here, I want to talk to you for a minute. He said, you really have a fine group there. He said, do you realize you're one of the few who have come in and performed, and the whole student body stood up and applauded and kept asking for another number. I think we did a couple of encores there. He said, I just want you to know that. He said, but I want to tell you something. You don't charge enough. He said what he said. You do not charge enough. He said, there are groups that we've given 3 times as much to as we give it to you. And they can't carry your bootstraps. I never forget. I don't have to remember that father's name, but I said, well, you think so? He said, I know so. He said, they're going to want you back next year and next year and next year. Now, when you come back here, this is my guy. Mm-hmm. He said, when you come back here, don't you accept some of those cheesy check. You don't need to be begging. You've worked for where you are. I thought about it all the time, and I thought, well, you know what? That's something to think about. So what happened, I started raising the prices on the alumni groups. They were making plenty of money. One choir, I went down to the same farm in Western Kentucky, and I believe that was Owensboro. I don't want to say it because it's not a very complimentary thing, but they got down there and said they would, would take up a collection. We gave you what we could. And I think they gave us something like $300. Well, it cost us almost that much by the time I fed everybody, and then I had to come back. But I still got to pay for my bus, got to pay for the bus driver. They would find places for us to live off when we live in the homes and things like that. And I found out, you know what they do with the money? They were having a dance, an annual dance.
With the money they raised.
Dance with the choir's money. I told the lady in the sponsor, I said, I tell you what, next to our performance next year, she was, oh yes, we want you to come back. I said, well, next year, we're going to let's talk money ahead of time, okay? So she said, okay, all right. Next time we came down, I tripled what I had before. Not only that, I got some extras up on the side for something. Oh, we had an extra meal we had to eat.
Yeah.
No, but those are good things. The whole thing was that my successes were based upon my students' enthusiasm. It wasn't that I always taught, because if you noticed, about everything that you guys did that wasn't classical was modern and out of my realm.
Yeah.
The songs, the music.
Because even with our approach to, I remember, because gospel.
Oh, yeah.
Even doing gospel, you didn't want us. You wanted gospel excellence. Everything had to be done a certain way.
I was afraid to do gospel. I was afraid because they had become so established to the choir singing, the classical music and doing it so well, and because they could pick this chest. I said, hey, our choir can sing anything. We can do all this, blah blah blah. But I wasn't even looking at the gospel music because I hadn't really begun to think of it. I always knew that I could pat my foot to it. I always knew that I liked it, but I never really got it because I was never taught it. I was never taught to do it. Once I left Lincoln University as a student, all of my teachers after that were white. But I had gotten my foundation from the black school. And so I had to take all that in. So I wasn't taught the gospel thing. And I know there were several other black directors who were trying to do what they thought was the collegiate way. Because if you had, like, say, a master's mostly or a doctorate, you went to some white school to get those. Now, undergraduate, you could go to the black schools. That doesn't mean that I left my black thing. I didn't. Because, we always did spirituals.
Yes.
Every concert, you're going to see spirituals on there. Because I learned about my people through spirituals. I had to write papers in school. I've got a paper that I wrote before I even went to Pittsburgh. And I wrote a thing on Duke Ellington. And I think I tied in that what Duke Ellington had that was so natural and not quite like others. And I pointed a few of those things out. That paper is in the library right now.
Wow.
It's in the library right now at Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh. When I went there to work on my doctorate, this guy came up to me. His name is Joe, what's his last name? Joe played trumpet. Anyway, he was working on his master's, I was working on my doctorate. And he walked over to me after, he says, man, let me ask you a question. Did you write a paper on Duke Ellington? I said, Duke Ellington? I said, oh, I wrote a paper on Duke Ellington before I came here, so I wrote it to Dr. Davis so he could see it. He wanted to see what. He said, man, that's a heck of a paper. He said, I read that paper. I liked it. He said, that encouraged me. I went down and he said, hey, so, come on here, man. This is the cat who wrote this thing on Duke, man. Both these guys were jazz musicians. And they're good, though. God, they were good. But they liked what I said about Duke. And I tied it mostly to the historic element of where Duke's people came from, or where he came from, or the basics of his music. It was all tied up in African Americanism. And that's just the way it is.
What do you see different now in choral music choirs now that is different than what you have seen in earlier years?
I think more than ever, the music today is influenced by theater. television, Broadway. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that it is. We had classical music as sort of a guidepost for music coming up. When I was coming up, you sang Bach, and you stood straight, and you'd sing properly, and diction wise and so forth. The choir, and the choir director is directing, and he's giving all indications, and it's very musical, and it still is. But now, man, you turn TV on, some of these people are so talented. It's just phenomenal, and the things that they do, group-wise, you don't see as many choirs. If you do, they're probably dancers. They're dancing choir. Rarely will you see them just standing there and the choir director's directing like he's in church or whatever. Yeah. And even in the churches, I tell you, that's an area that I really wish, if I had to do it all over again, I would take a different approach. It would be the approach of contemporary gospel music, church music, what other kind of music you can come back with. But it all is going to be delved into a combination, and every church can have those. And we try that right here in Franklin, because we got a little praise band and not to be quite like but they were good though. There's some good things about them, and I like them. I really do like them. It's just I don't know that much about it, but I some of it I like to listen to. Some of it is nice, but it's not challenging to me because of my upbringing, I suppose. But now, some things, Kirk Franklin is a pretty smart guy and very well known, but there's some things that I listen to, some things just kind of leaves me cold. But then, hey, then it's not a knock against him. That's a knock against all music. Or it's a knock against me for not recognizing that change had calls for this.
Yeah. In the midst of it, as we wrap up, because we could talk forever, now that you're, as you said, it's hard for you to think of longevity now.
Yeah.
What should we not lose?
I can think of a whole lot of stuff. And we will not lose it. But it's going to be just escaped from us. It's going to slide away from us. And that's just our innateness, our basic contribution, ourselves, our rhythms, our melodies, our ability to be extemporaneous, to add to slide. That's all. But Aretha, whatever she can do, it's just something different about that. But I don't think it'll ever be lost completely. Not in our lifetime.
Yeah.
It won't be lost completely because the expression is so darn. I told somebody the other day, I said, who's the greatest singer in the world? And I said, you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you. But I think that Aretha Franklin is the greatest singer in the world. Who? I said, Aretha Franklin. I said, she's dead now, but she's still her music. Who's greater? Frank Sinatra? Elvis Presley? He copied after us anyway. See who else is out there that's good. You can name anybody. It was Billy Eckstein. Go back the day. The rappers. Now I tell you who I'm beginning to get a little bit more appreciation for are some of the rappers.
Really?
I think that sometimes those words that they got coming is pretty good, but they never steer away from what makes them go. What is it? It's the rhythm. You know what? No matter what you say, even though you don't understand all the words that they're singing, it's like, what the heck are they doing, Pippa? What did he say? I was my granddaughter one day and I said, baby, what did he just say? And she said something, and I keep going on. I said, I didn't know, what did he say? So finally she says, Papa, don't you get any of the words. She was younger then than she is now. Don't you get any of the words? I gotta ask if she remembers that.
So now that you see so many of your students now in so many different areas, how does that for you feel?
That's you can't compare that. You can't compare that feeling because you can go back. So many of them, particularly the ones who really get out there and make it big. But I have a lot of personal relationship with them because I've kind of worked with them on an individual basis. Some of them I didn't. See, I didn't work that much with Angela Ventura, but she was a soloist in the choir. But I didn't work that much with her individually. In fact, see, I stopped teaching voice a long time ago because I just felt like they needed something they weren't getting, and which was the operatic training. I hadn't had that. I should have gone ahead and taken it, done it. Sometimes I didn't do it. But I finally reached a point, man, after hearing so many opera singers sing, and I was a tenor, I thought, and then later on I discovered I was not a tenor. My good buddy who graduated from Harvard, well, he went to Fisk first, then he went to Harvard, and then I've forgotten where he got his PhD from, singing up a storm. And I was singing to him one day. He said, Carl, I said, yeah, what is this? Why are you singing that stuff, man? I said, what do you mean, what stuff? I said, I'm singing the same stuff you sing. Yeah, but it's not your voice. Nobody ever told me, but everybody used to always praise my singing. And oh God, I'd sing and they just go crazy over all that. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're not a tenor. Don't you feel yourself struggling up there, so you're making all these adjustments and everything? You're not a tenor. I said, Oscar, you don't know what you're talking about. He said, okay. And so he said, okay, I'm going to sing this song. What are we doing? See, oh. What was it? No, it wasn't that one. It was, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I sang it. I thought it did pretty well that he sang it. You know, what's the difference between my singing and you singing? He was sitting over there and I'm sitting over here. But just sing the whole thing, just sing a little bit of it. I said, well, we got different caliber of voices, we got different timbre. But what about the preparation? What about the ease in production? And I thought about it, and I said, I ain't going to tell the truth. I said, well, you sing it easier than I do, but you got different voices. He said, that's right. Because I can't sing down there where you are. And you don't have no business trying to feel where I am. I'll never forget, that was Oscar, and he died about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I miss Oscar. Oscar and I were at Ohio State together for a while.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from him.
For those who are watching or listening that are young professionals or that are evolving, one of the greatest things that I'm getting from this conversation is your ability to learn from everybody and from everything. What would you tell all those who are watching or listening that part of the journey of success and how important that is, and for us to grab that?
Well, I would say don't be afraid to come out of your comfort zone. And don't be too quick to judge those who are better than you or less better than you. But listen and learn as much as you can. Because if you think about it, many of those people who became so famous that you listen to and copy from don't have as much education as you do, or did not have and will never have. So they're individuals who have adjusted to a certain style. I never thought rap would go anywhere. In fact, I didn't even like rock and roll. And I got mad when Elvis Presley jumped up on the stage to Ed Sullivan show and was doing his thing. And I was thinking, we do all that stuff all day in high school. We've been doing that stuff forever. But he's making all the money doing it. I didn't like that either. So I said, you're just going to have to develop your own thing. That's what you have to do. And if you want to do opera, you got to study it. It's a different language. It's a different genre. We don't have it in our churches. Most of the music that we've had in our past have come from the churches. I wish it would return to it.
Yeah.
Those are some of the most beautiful musical days I've had in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can do just about anything you want to. They rap when they talking about God.
Yeah.
They're rapping away.
Yeah.
And the good rappers are good because of the quality of what they're trying to say, because of how they say it, and because their rhythmic instinct is not just the rhythm instinct. It's not just the rhythm idea, but it's the thought process on the words, the diction, and then of course, you can't do it without the rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on behalf of all of your students, thank you for, not just recruiting us, but for exposing us to excellence.
Well,
I mean, you exposed us to, there are so many things, I say myself, that I judge excellence based off of what we were exposed to. Some of the people that are out there in the industry in many different areas, I'm not surprised because of how we were developed to be. And you did that. And even though you don't take credit for all of it, but you exposed us, brought us in the room, from different states and from different cities. And so thank you for doing that.
Well, keep in mind, don't forget that inspiration goes both ways. And the students that I had were kids who were pretty talented first, and most importantly, were always were ready to learn.
Yes. Yeah.
And who would not take no for an answer if they were in the proximity of another choir. You could not sing concert choir. You don't even try.
Yes, yeah. Well, everybody, as you can tell, we can go on and on and on. But thank you, Dr. Smith, for this interview. I appreciate it greatly.
And happy holidays to you.